Good day. I hope this week is treating you well so far. As many of you are obviously aware, over the past year and a half has been quite a journey for all of us, whether as a country, a church body, as families, or even as individuals. This journey comes with a lot of mixed feelings and a lot of mixed ideas. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with that, what does lead us astray is when those mixed things lead us to be divided from one another. Ecclesiastes is widely acknowledged as being written by King Solomon in his later years. And while there are differing opinions as to who wrote it, the author of the book would likely see arguing over the authorship as something else, that is, in the futility of human effort. Regardless of this authorship, let us continue to see the wisdom that it holds. Ecclesiastes 3 1 through 8 says, "There is an appointed time for everything, and there is a time for every matter under heaven, a time to give birth and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to shun embracing, a time to search and a time to give up as lost, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear apart and a time to sew together, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace." In the face of God's sovereignty over our lives, we have to embrace that God appoints these times, these moments in our lives. That is not to deny our free will, but to acknowledge how God is always seeking to help us learn and ultimately be drawn back to Him in everything we do. The book of Ecclesiastes starts with, "Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity." Some translations say all is in vain. The thesis of this book is that the absolute futility of all things that is without God at their core, that life is really meaningless without God, and it has seemingly aimless cycles and inexplicable paradoxes, and at times it seems impossible to even order the events of life. Yet God calls us still to enjoy that life as is a gift from Him, and He calls us to also live in obedience to Him, so that we can have the most fulfilling life as He sees fit. Part of my work is helping people understand that we can categorize our feelings as good and bad, but that is a futile effort as well. Our feelings are really just information our body's giving us about what is going on in our life. And it is our choices we make with those feelings that matter. Ephesians 4:26 says, "Be angry and yet do not sin." Being angry is not necessarily a sin. Being so angry you lash out at your brother or sister, that is. Being sad is not a sin. Embracing your sorrow and seeking harmful ways to cope is. The past 18 months have had a lot of these mixed feelings and a lot of mixed actions. Maybe in the past 18 months, you said some hurtful things to your neighbor. Maybe you pushed people out of your life. Maybe you put up walls in your relationships based on who people voted for or what their opinions on COVID were. Maybe you have felt isolated and alone and don't know how to ask for help. Maybe you post things online that hurt others. Maybe, like myself, you let relationships that others in the body of Christ that we share with, you let them dwindle and are feeling alone in this isolation. How many of the things do we let ourselves be divided in are really things that are just in vanity? How many of those things are futile in the eternal purpose of God and His plan for us? As we begin the GEM series, I encourage you to take heart the lessons of the Gospels, this wonderful good news. There is only one unifying force in eternity that can bridge all things, that can separate us from really the norm of the world and the struggles they engage in when it comes to making things work. All man-made attempts are doomed to fail in their attempt to unify. They may work temporarily, but eventually they fall to discord. It is only through the cross and through Christ we can be unified. So today, recognize the transition of things. There's been a time for division, a time for suffering. Now let it be a time of healing and restoration. Reach out to someone you've lost contact with. Offer the hand of peace with an apology to someone you've hurt. Pray for wisdom in your life and an open mind and heart to reconciliation. There is no human endeavor, ideal, or philosophy worth being separated over our fellow members of the body of Christ over with. Only the eternal ones matter. God bless.